movies.
I want it.
Murder of... But behind... On the outside, they seemed like the perfect Hollywood couple. But behind closed doors, she struggled with substance abuse, and he tried to keep their marriage from falling apart. Number 20, the murder of Phil Hartman.
I can suddenly become Jack Benny or John Wayne.
By 1998, comedian Phil Hartman hit his stride in television and movies.
I want to touch people's lives, and I want to be liked by a lot of people.
We laughed at him, whether we were laughing at his face on Saturday Night Live or we were laughing at his voice on The Simpsons.
But Phil's wife, Bryn, didn't completely share his joy. For years, she put her acting career on hold to be a stay-at-home mom. Bryn began taking antidepressants.
She had bit parts in a couple of movies and TV shows, but it just was never going to happen for her. And by Phil's growing attention and growing popularity and fame, it was just eating away at her.
There was a dirty little secret that Bryn Hartman was living with, and that was her addiction to prescription and other drugs. And Mr. Hartman was very upset over this, and they argued over it.
On May 27, 1998, Bryn went out to dinner with a girlfriend. She left the restaurant around 9:45 p.m. Sometime before 3 a.m., Bryn returned home. Whether she and Phil argued is unclear, but at some point, Phil fell asleep in their bedroom.
Bryn Hartman, at some time in the early evening, after the children had gone to bed, pulled a gun out.
Bryn pointed the gun at Phil and fired 3 shots.
The fatal wound to Mr. Hartman was a gunshot wound to the head, and he had 2 additional wounds, one of which was considered non-fatal. The other was considered a potentially fatal wound.
Bryn Hartman was a drug addict and a cocaine addict. So somebody who's in a drug-induced state has no control over their impulses, is profoundly depressed. I mean, this is a woman who was very lost.
The Hartman children were still asleep down the hall.
Bryn Hartman left her residence and drove to the residence of a longtime friend, Ron Douglas.
Bryn told Douglas that she shot Phil.
After he discovered that she was in the possession of a handgun, he ultimately agreed to follow her back to her residence.
Bryn and Douglas returned to the Hartman home.
When the gentleman got there and he actually saw that Mr. Hartman was deceased, he then got on his cell phone and called the police.
I think there's been a shooting here. Okay, do you see a victim? Yes.
Before the cops arrived, Bryn barricaded herself in the master bedroom. Moments later, Bryn picked up a second gun and lay down next to the body of her husband. She held the weapon to her own head and pulled the trigger.
It appears to be a murder-suicide. Mrs. Hartman died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Mrs. Hartman was in bed, sitting up in bed with her back against the headboard before she had taken her own life.
A homicide-suicide is devastating to the public, and it's something that, as a member of the media, you look at it and say, my God, how can this happen?
And then you see these LAPD officers quickly carrying these kids out of that home. It is a tremendous tragedy for 2 young children to lose both parents at the same time.
Police later learned that Bryn's blood alcohol level was 0.12, well above the legal limit.
Mrs. Hartman had the trace of prescription medication known as Zoloft in her system and also tested positive for cocaine use.
Sometimes combinations of drugs that are found may often interact and cause erratic behavior.
She was clearly an unstable person to begin with. That fueled with drugs and booze, I mean, that's what sent her over the edge.
Phil Hartman doesn't tell everybody, my wife's an addict. My wife has these major problems. So when she does this act, it comes out of the blue.
Phil Hartman's life ended at the age of 49.